SMT Nation, we back. Nation, it's official. People are already starting to discuss the bankruptcy of Dish, and it's happening like within telco media, and the analysts within the industry, they're all basically saying Dish is going to run out of money and go bankrupt at some point in the next few years. Once they start reporting that, it starts getting people talking about what's the company worth, what assets do they have, and all those types of things. I will tell you, while they may not know how to run a business, or they may just have their backs up against the wall and trying to do something that's damn near impossible, they have, to my surprise, and I think to most people, built out a decent network so far. And that's built off of a pretty random selection of bands, and that's where the value of the company is. Let's talk about what the spectrum is worth, what companies will be willing to pay for it, and who is a match for the spectrum. And we'll just kind of talk through the article and these talking points. I'll be sure to link it for you guys in the description. And of course, ways to support the SMT to show your appreciation for all the content here on the channel. Those ways are in the description as well. Okay, so yeah, Dish is in a tough situation. They have a real capital issue, right? They don't have what's referred to as liquidity. We're talking about cash on hand, money to invest into the business, right? They are unable to do two things at once, right? They can't build a network and build out their retail footprint, right? We've kind of seen that happen. They focused on the network, they put that on pause. Now they're focusing on retail and marketing, and now they're doing the best that they can. I'm sure they are, right? But they've done a lot of things that have been terrible, awful, and have shot themselves in the foot on a lot of different levels. But anyways, the talks now is that at some point they're going to succumb to bankruptcy, right? That's what Moffett and those guys are saying. And they refer to it as an overwhelming probability. See, they're not even saying it's a possibility. Overwhelming probability. They might as well just say it's going to happen, right? Anyways, what does this mean for Dish? How do they get out of bankruptcy? How do they deal with the pressures, pay off their debts? Well, they really have, one set of assets, and that's spectrum. That's the one thing that they do have. They have been purchasing spectrum, the airwaves, to have a wireless network. They've been buying that for over 10 years, right? They've been making purchases. They've showed up to auctions, and they've compiled a pretty nice catalog or portfolio of spectrum, right? They got 600 megahertz. They got some 700. 600's national for the most part. They've got AWS and a couple of different bands and blocks. They've got some DoD that they got in the most recent auction. They got some CBRS. They have spectrum, right? What's it worth? Analysts over at New Street Research say that they know how much it's worth. They say on the low end, a conservative estimate, it's worth $57 billion. And on the high end, it's worth $91 billion. And of course, that is all contingent on time, right? The longer the horizon, the more the spectrum is valued, right? It has a higher value because, when we're talking about 5 years from now, 10 years from now, there are not going to be any lower frequency auctions. Actually, there's no lower frequency auctions now, right? The next auction that we're going to see that's like sub 6 gigahertz, and it's probably going to be the last one, is going to be the 3.1, which we're expecting here in a few years. After that, guys, we're going to be talking about, above 6-7 gigahertz. We're talking about microwave frequencies and things like that. So that stuff's going to be very valuable. T-Mobile, obviously, they've got spectrum. They're trying to sell Dish. That should be happening like mid-year next year. And, that's valued at a few $1 billion. And that's an agreement. It's probably worth more now because of time. And I don't know, book value of Dish's spectrum assets is $29 billion. So that's basically what they spent on it if you add it up at all these different auctions. And so $29 billion then, but what it's worth now is probably double, if not triple, possibly, right? Depending on the time horizon. It says here that according to analysts, AWS-4, which I think is a spectrum band that they have, I'm trying to remember how that's set up, if it's paired or if it's like, I think it's the one where they have like 20 megahertz for dedicated downlink, and then the other 25 megahertz of AWS is paired for downlink and uplink. I forget the setup. It's something weird. But it's cool because they can use it as band 66 and 66, or they could use it in a different fashion as well within an NR band. I don't know if you guys have ever looked into the holdings of Dish, but it's pretty wacky and wonky. But anyways, they've got some cool configurations and stuff they could do. And of course, the licenses themselves specifically, they're more valuable in places like New York and Atlanta and Houston and LA versus like, you know, licenses in some random place in South Carolina, right? So anyways, who would be in on the on the spectrum from Dish? Well, T-Mobile makes sense for the low band, the 600 megahertz. I personally don't want to see T-Mobile get more 600 if they were to liquidate their assets. I actually wanted to see that 600 megahertz go to Verizon. I would like to see Verizon get some additional low band to offer more low band capacity and throughput in rural America. Personally, I would like that. I don't want to see T-Mobile getting more 600. They already have plenty of it, and they've been taking more of it from companies like Comcast and these other holdings companies like Columbia Capital and whatever else. So I don't think they need any more. And AT&T has so much low band, right? They've got all the 700, band 29, band 12. They've got the band 14 from FirstNet. They don't need more low band, right? So, but Verizon really only has band 13 nationwide for low band. It's a 10 by 10 slice, 10 megahertz. In some places they have band 5, the 850 megahertz, but it's not national, right? They're often splitting it. It's chopped up between them and AT&T, and then like companies like US Cellular, right, and stuff like that, and regional providers. So I think that's where that should go. With respect to AWS, it could go to any company, right? I think AT&T probably makes the most sense there, right? But I mean, anybody could use it. Verizon, AT&T, T-Mobile. So that's. I'm just thinking aloud. You know, I've discussed this topic before, but you know, you do have that flexibility, you know, with the AWS 3 and the AWS 4, NR, you know, N66 versus N70 and stuff like that. I don't know. We'll see. Overall, you know, this is foreshadowing a bankruptcy for Dish and their ultimate demise as a company. They're even speculating that they could sell part of their bands, like the AWS spectrum, and still remain operational, but they could create liquidity by selling some of their spectrum. And you know, they could always do it in bits and pieces, and I don't know. I really don't like talking about this when it comes to this company. I was just kind of hoping that they would be more competitive and they would be able to be viable, because we sure could use more competition in the industry. Because right now, AT&T, Verizon, T-Mobile, I don't know if you guys are watching it, but they're not doing so many friendly things to customers, right? Like they're raising prices, legacy plans. They're trying to force migrate people from plans. Like, we really could use another competitor to come and disrupt. Right? It would be nice if it could be Dish on some level. Talk to me about this. What do you guys think of all this? What do you think happens to the spectrum? What do you think happens to Dish? What's the most probable outcome? Love to hear what you have to say on this. You all the voice of the people, the SMT Nation. Let your voice be heard.